The wounded creature in the mist, the fog was thick that morning. It moved like ghosts between the tall blue trees. The air was cold and everything was quiet. Too quiet. Jaren, a human mechanic traveling alone, walked slowly along the narrow trail. His boots crunched softly on the wet alien leaves. He had landed on this planet Kareth 5 2 days ago. He was looking for rare machine parts near the ruins, but now he was lost. Suddenly he stopped. There was a sound. A low, deep growl came from the mist ahead. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make his body freeze. Slowly, Jaren reached for the small plasma knife on his belt. Another sound. This time it wasn't a growl. It was a whimper. Jaren stepped forward carefully, pushing branches aside. The sound grew louder. He squinted into the mist. Then he saw it. A giant beast, maybe 3 meters long, lay curled beside a fallen tree. Its fur was black with streaks of silver soaked with blood. One of its back legs was bent badly. There were deep cuts along its sides. Its breathing was shallow. But the most shocking thing was its eyes. They were glowing blue. The creature raised its head slightly and stared straight at Jaren. It didn't snarl. It didn't attack. It just stared and let out another weak sound. It was in pain. Terrible pain. Jaren's heart pounded. He knew this planet had wild creatures, many dangerous, but this one looked different. It looked intelligent. He whispered, "What happened to you?" Of course it didn't answer, but it didn't move either. It just blinked, slowly. Jaren knew he couldn't leave it here, but helping a creature like this, was he crazy? He looked around. No other sounds. No one in sight. He sighed. "All right, don't bite me, okay?" He slowly stepped closer and pulled off his jacket. Carefully, he wrapped it around the bleeding leg. The beast winced but didn't fight. That was a good sign. It took Jaren nearly an hour to create a stretcher using tree branches and rope. The beast was too heavy to lift alone, but he found a way to drag it back to his camp using an old hover sled. Every few meters the beast groaned, but it didn't attack. In fact, it looked at him with something that felt like trust. By the time they reached the camp, Jaren was shaking from the effort. He gave the creature water. It drank slowly, weakly. Then it closed its eyes. Jaren sat down beside it, wiping sweat from his forehead. "What are you?" he whispered. He looked closer and noticed a thick metal collar around the beast's neck. It had alien symbols on it, old and worn. But one mark stood out. It looked like a royal crest. Jaren frowned. He didn't know much about Kareth 5's rulers, but he had seen that symbol before. It was something important. He stood and checked the beast's wounds again. Some were deep, but not fatal. He sprayed med gel on them, wrapped them with bandages, and covered the creature with a thermal blanket. Night fell. The fog outside the camp stayed thick. Strange sounds echoed through the trees, but the beast didn't move. It lay still, breathing slowly. Jaren sat by the fire, staring at it. Why was such a powerful creature out there, injured and alone? Who did it belong to? And why was there that royal symbol on its collar? He had a feeling this wasn't just any wild animal. Something was very wrong. Something bigger was happening. But he had no idea that saving this beast would change his life forever. The fire crackled softly. Jaren sat with his back against a tree, watching the strange beast sleep under the thermal blanket. Outside, the fog had grown even thicker. It was like the forest didn't want to let go of its secrets. Suddenly, the beast let out a low growl in its sleep. Its legs twitched. Jaren leaned forward, worried. Was it dreaming? Was it in pain? He reached for another med gel canister and gently applied it to the creature's wounds again. As the gel touched the skin, something odd happened. The creature's fur shimmered. Just for a second, its dark fur glowed with a faint silver light, and the wounds beneath the gel seemed to close faster than before. Jaren blinked. That's not normal. He leaned closer and noticed something else. The royal crest on the beast's collar had started glowing faintly too, just like the fur. The air smelled slightly sweet, like flowers blooming in the May. Cold. Then, it opened its eyes. The glowing blue eyes locked onto Jaren again, but this time, they were calmer, less afraid, maybe even grateful. Jaren held his hand out slowly, palm facing up. It's okay. I'm not your enemy. The beast stared at his hand, then did something shocking. It nudged his fingers gently with its nose. Jaren didn't breathe. This creature, strong enough to tear him apart, was thanking him? He whispered, "You're not just an animal, are you?" For the next 2 days, Jaren stayed in the camp. He fed the creature water from a tin cup. When it was strong enough, it began to eat raw meat from his supplies, though it ate slowly and with care. Each night, the beast would howl softly into the mist, as if calling for something, or someone. The sound echoed far into the forest, and left Jaren with goosebumps. But no one answered. On the third morning, he noticed more changes. The creature stood up briefly, its injured leg no longer bent. Its wounds had closed almost completely. Jaren watched in awe. That should have taken weeks. Even stranger. When he stepped too far from the camp, the creature followed him like a silent shadow. Protective. Watching. That night, Jaren couldn't sleep. He sat staring at the collar again, trying to make sense of the alien symbols. Suddenly, his old communicator buzzed. He hadn't used it in days. Unknown frequency detected. Message incoming. He pressed the button. A robotic voice spoke in, an ancient alien tongue, then translated. All citizens be warned, the royal beast has escaped. Dangerous. If seen, do not engage. Elite recovery units are searching. Jaren's blood ran cold. His eyes moved to the creature now curled up beside the fire like a giant dog. This was the royal beast? He turned back to the collar and now recognized the final symbol. Not just a crest. It was a seal. Royal property of the house of Baroness Zarella. Jaren whispered, I just saved the most dangerous animal on the planet, and it belongs to a baroness? As if hearing his words, the creature stood and moved beside him. It rested its head on his knee and let out a soft, rumbling sigh. He looked down at it, unsure whether to laugh or panic. I think I just made things very complicated. And in the shadows of the misty forest, a pair of red eyes blinked. They had found the camp, but they didn't attack. Not yet. They were waiting for the signal. High above the misty forest of Kareth 5, a sleek silver ship hovered in silence. Inside, Baroness Zarella stood tall in her dark royal armor, her 4 glowing eyes locked onto a floating screen. On it was the blurry satellite image of something large, something wounded, being dragged through the forest by a human. Her voice was cold. Confirm the beast's identity. A tech officer bowed quickly. Yes, Baroness. The collar signal confirms it. It's your guardian. The creature has bonded with a human male. The room went silent. The Baroness's fingers curled into fists. That creature was born to protect the royal line. It was trained to kill for me. Why would it bond with a human? No one answered, her lips pressed into a hard line. Send the Shadow Seekers, tell them. Recover the beast, do not harm it, but if the human resists, remove him. Far below in the forest camp, Jaren sat sharpening a stick. His breath was visible in the cold air. The creature, whom he now called Smoke because of its mist-like fur, sat beside him, ears twitching. It had been 4 days since he found Smoke. 4 peaceful days. But something felt wrong tonight. Smoke suddenly stood, growling low. Jaren grabbed his knife and whispered, What is it? Smoke moved toward the trees, eyes glowing, body tense. Then Jaren heard it too. Bare footsteps. Not loud, but too steady to be wild animals. Someone's here, he whispered. He stood and scanned the trees. Suddenly a voice called out through the mist. Human, do not be afraid. We're here for the royal guardian. Step away and you won't be harmed. 3 tall figures in black cloaks stepped forward. Their faces were hidden behind smooth masks. Their suits glowed faintly, and their boots didn't make a sound. Jaren raised his hands. "Who are you?" The middle figure answered. "Royal Seekers. The beast you have rescued belongs to the Baroness Zurella. It must be returned." Jaren looked at Smoke. The creature had stepped in front of him now, baring its teeth, standing protectively. He shook his head. "No, it's injured. It needs more time." One of the Seekers stepped forward. "You don't understand. That beast is worth more than 10 ships. It guards the bloodline of the Baroness. You should not have touched it." Jaren kept his voice calm. "Then thank me, I saved its life." The Seekers paused, then the leader spoke again. "You've bonded with it. That's forbidden. If you don't move, we'll have to separate you by force." Jaren reached for his plasma blade slowly. "I didn't ask to bond. I just couldn't let it die." Smoke growled louder. Suddenly, the leader raised a signal baton, and that's when Smoke attacked. The forest exploded with motion. Smoke leapt through the air, faster than Jaren had ever seen. The Seekers dodged, but not fast enough. One was thrown into a tree. Another was pinned to the ground, claws at his throat. Jaren ducked behind a log, heart racing. The leader of the Seekers threw a stun charge. Blue light flashed, and Smoke screamed in pain. Jaren jumped up. "No!" He ran to Smoke and knelt beside him as the beast struggled to stand. Smoke was shaking, its silver fur dimming. The Seeker aimed again. Then, another voice rang out, louder, colder. "That's enough." A second ship descended into the trees, casting a bright blue spotlight down on them. Its doors opened, and the Baroness stepped out. She wore armor that shimmered like water and moved like a shadow. The Seekers dropped to their knees. The Baroness walked toward Jaren slowly. Her gaze never left Smoke. Her voice was sharp, but soft. "You cared for my guardian beast." Jaren stood firm. "I didn't know it was yours, I just saw it needed help." She looked at Smoke. The beast raised its head and made a soft sound, a whimper, almost like a child. The Baroness's expression changed. Not anger, not pride. Something else. Sadness? "You called it Smoke?" Jaren nodded. She whispered, "It hasn't made a sound in years, not since the war." Then she looked directly at Jaren. "You don't understand what you've done, human. You've bonded with it. That's no small thing." Jaren frowned. "What does that mean?" The Baroness turned to her soldiers. "Stand down. Do not touch them." Jaren blinked. "Wait, what?" She stepped closer. "Come with me, Jaren. You're part of this now, whether you like it or not." Jaren couldn't sleep that night. He sat beside the dying campfire, staring at the stars above the treetops. Smoke was curled beside him, its silver fur rising and falling slowly with each breath. The beast had calmed after the Baroness ordered her hunters to stand down. But something still felt wrong. The Baroness hadn't taken them, she had only said, "You're part of this now." Then she disappeared into the ship and vanished into the night sky. Now the forest was quiet, too quiet. Then it began again. Footsteps. But these weren't like before. They were heavier, slower, deliberate. Jaren stood, his hand on his plasma knife. "Smoke," he whispered. The beast was already up, growling low. He turned off his camp lights and knelt in the shadows, listening. Crunch. Crunch. Branches snapped. Something large was moving between the trees. But it wasn't human. And it wasn't one of the Baroness's soldiers. Smoke stepped in front of Jaren, tail low, body ready. The hairs along its back stood up like knives. It was scared. But more than that, it was angry. Jaren held his breath. Then something stepped out of the darkness, a massive shadow with 6 legs and armor-like skin. Its face was hidden behind a bone-like mask, and 2 glowing red eyes peered through the cracks. It wasn't from this planet. It wasn't from the royal house. And it didn't come in peace. The creature let out a sharp hiss. Smoke roared and charged. The 2 beasts crashed in the middle of the camp. Jaren dove aside, rolling behind the wreck of his hoversled. Sparks flew as claws struck metal. The air filled with the sounds of howling, growling, and snapping jaws. Jaren peeked out and froze. The creature wasn't fighting to capture. It was fighting to kill. And it was winning. Smoke was strong, but still recovering. Its wounds had closed, but its body was not at full strength. Every time it tried to strike, the bone-armored monster blocked it with thick claws and slammed it down. Jaren had to do something. He grabbed his plasma blade, turned the power to max, and sprinted forward. As the creature struggled, he climbed onto the beast's back and plunged the blade into its armor. Sparks flew. The monster screeched in rage and threw him off like a rag doll. He hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. Smoke saw him fall and went wild. Its eyes burned bright silver. A strange sound echoed from its throat, half roar, half scream, and then its body began to glow. Glowing lines appeared along its legs and chest. Its claws sharpened. Its muscles pulsed. Even its wounds seemed to vanish. It wasn't just a beast anymore. It was something else, something ancient, something royal. With one final howl, Smoke launched at the attacker and drove it into the trees. Claws tore into armor. Bones snapped. The red-eyed creature tried to run, but Smoke slammed it down and delivered a final blow to the neck. Silence fell. Only the sound of Smoke's breathing remained. Then it limped back to Jaren's side and collapsed. Jaren crawled toward the beast. His ribs ached, his head throbbed, but he touched Smoke's fur gently. "You saved me," he whispered. Smoke licked his arm weakly. Then he noticed something glowing under the beast's fur, on its chest. A round, golden symbol, just like the crest on its collar. It pulsed with light, and suddenly a small beam shot upward, into the sky. A signal. Jaren gasped. "You just called someone." Far away, inside a floating palace made of dark stone and crystal, the Baroness stood alone before a tall mirror. Her eyes closed slowly. Then her guards rushed in. "Hi, lady. There's been a signal." She turned. "From the beast?" They nodded. "Yes, the Royal Heartstone has activated. It only glows in 2 cases, when its life is near death, or when it accepts a new soul bond." The Baroness looked out the window at the stars. "It's chosen the human," she said softly. "He's no longer just a caretaker. He's a part of its life essence now." She looked at her guards. "Prepare my ship, I'm going back." Back in the forest, Jaren sat with Smoke's head on his lap. The stars above twinkled, and the air had gone still again. He didn't know who had sent the monster. He didn't know why Smoke had suddenly changed. But one thing was clear now. He was no longer just a man who helped a wounded creature. He was in the middle of a royal war, and the beast beside him had chosen him as family. The morning came slowly. The mist still hung heavy, but the forest had changed. It felt like something was watching. Something old. Something powerful. Jaren sat beside the silent form of Smoke. The beast was alive, but barely. Its silver fur was dim, and its breath came slow and weak. He had bandaged what he could. He had done his best. But he knew it wasn't enough. Smoke had saved him last night, unleashing a strange light, something more than strength. And that light had nearly burned its life away. Jaren whispered, "You didn't have to protect me like that." Smoke opened one glowing eye. A soft rumble answered him, like a weak purr. And then they heard it. Engines. From the sky, 3 sleek, black ships cut through the clouds and landed with a roar of dust and wind. Jaren stood fast, blade ready, heart pounding. The ships opened. Out stepped soldiers, not seekers like before, but elites. Their armor was gold and red. Their weapons were glowing with charge. And at their center was a towering figure with a blue cape trailing behind him. He wore a crown of light. Jaren frowned. That wasn't the Baroness. The man raised a hand. "Step away from the beast, human." Jaren didn't move. The man spoke again, louder this time. "That creature belongs to the crown. You are interfering with royal property. This is your final warning." Jaren looked down at Smoke, then back at them. "No," he said firmly. "This beast is not just property. It saved my life. It has thoughts, feelings, loyalty. It's not yours to claim anymore." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Then you've bonded. Foolish." He raised his arm. "Take them both." The soldiers moved fast. Jaren barely had time to shout before the first energy bolt zipped past his head. He ducked and rolled behind a fallen log, firing back with his small blaster. The bolts bounced off the soldiers' shields like pebbles. He wasn't winning this. Smoke stirred weakly. It tried to rise, legs shaking. Jaren ran to its side. "We have to go," he whispered. "They'll kill you." Smoke tried to stand, but fell again. That's when a new ship screamed through the clouds, sleek and dark with glowing white wings. It landed between the soldiers and the camp with a thunderous blast. Everyone froze. Then the door opened, and the Baroness stepped out. She walked alone through the smoke, eyes blazing. The gold-caped commander turned. "Baroness Zurella," he said coldly. "You are interfering with a crown operation." She didn't blink. "This beast is mine. It was trained by me. It knows my voice. And now it has chosen another." The commander stepped forward. "By law, he has no right to keep it. Human, or not," she cut him off. "By law, you will leave this forest now." He scoffed. "You're just a baroness." She smiled, but there was no warmth. "And you are just a fool." Suddenly, light flared from her armor. Dozens of white-armored guards stepped from her ship. Their weapons were raised, silent, deadly. The commander hesitated, but Jaren didn't. He rushed back to Smoke and held it close. "Stay with me. Help is here." Smoke stirred again, and this time it rose, barely, but it stood beside him. The commander saw this and growled. "Enough of this!" He raised his arm to strike. Smoke moved first. It launched forward, claws glowing again. The Baroness gave no command, but the guards rushed in to cover Jaren. Chaos erupted. Blasters fired. Beams flashed. Trees exploded. Smoke rammed into the commander, pinning him down with a growl that shook the ground. The man tried to speak, but Smoke's claws pressed against his throat. Jaren shouted, "Stop! You've won!" Smoke hesitated, then stepped back. The commander gasped for air. The Baroness walked calmly to Jaren and Smoke. Her eyes softened, just a little. "You risked your life for it." Jaren nodded. "It risked its life for me first." She studied him for a long moment, then turned to the soldiers. "The forest belongs to no one. But this bond? It's sacred now." She looked at Jaren again. "You're coming with me, both of you. Not as prisoners, but as guests." Jaren frowned. "Why?" Her voice was calm. "Because in the Royal Archives, no beast has ever chosen a human." That night, Jaren sat inside her ship. He looked out the window at the forest below, still lit with the fire of the battle. Smoke lay beside him, resting, recovering, but peaceful now. The Baroness entered, the chamber silent as a shadow. She said only one thing before she left him alone. "Everything is about to change." The Baroness's ship glided above the clouds like a silent bird of steel. Inside, everything was quiet, too quiet for Jaren. He sat beside Smoke, who was resting on a bed of soft light crystals. The medics said the beast would recover, but slowly. Its energy had been drained after the fight. Jaren ran a hand through his messy hair. "What have I gotten myself into?" Smoke let out a soft rumble, barely opening one eye. It wasn't just a sound. It was a comfort. Later, a soft chime echoed through the room. A voice spoke gently through the speaker. "The Baroness will see you now." Jaren stood, unsure. His hands were dirty, his boots scuffed, his shirt torn from the fight. He wasn't ready, but he didn't have a choice. 2 guards escorted him through glowing halls. Everything was clean, sharp, and polished, like it was made for royalty. He felt out of place. The door to the throne chamber opened, and there she was. The Baroness stood at the center, her armor removed. She wore a long silver robe that moved like flowing water. Her skin shimmered faintly, and her 4 eyes studied Jaren with deep curiosity. He bowed awkwardly. Hello." She smiled slightly. "Human, you are brave, or foolish." "Maybe both," he said quietly. She circled him slowly. "You helped my guardian, not for power, not for reward. Why?" Jaren shrugged. "It was hurt. I couldn't leave it like that." She stopped. "Even though you knew it was dangerous?" "I didn't care," he said. "It needed help." The Baroness nodded. Then she did something no one expected. She knelt. Jaren stared. "What are you—" She placed a glowing hand over her heart. "The bond between you and the guardian beast is rare, sacred. It should not have happened, but it did. And now I owe you more than thanks." Jaren stepped back. "I'm not a prince or a hero. I'm just a mechanic." She stood again. "Perhaps, but smoke doesn't choose lightly. It once protected my bloodline. Now it protects yours." He frowned. "What does that mean?" She turned to a screen behind her. It showed old footage, battles, storms, the guardian beast ripping through enemy armies with silver fire in its breath. And then, something strange, a small child, alien but young, hugging the beast. The child was the Baroness. "Smoke," she said softly, "was born in the temple of bone and flame. It has only bonded with 2 souls in its life. Mine, and now yours." Jaren's voice was quiet. "Why me?" She looked at him with a hint of sadness. "Because you did not try to control it. You showed kindness without expectation. That is something the royal courts have forgotten." She stepped closer. "Now I offer you a choice." Jaren's heart raced. "You may return to your world, or you may stay, as protector to the guardian, as an honored guest in my house, but there will be danger. Many are already angry. They see your bond as a threat." Jaren looked down. He didn't want power. He didn't want to be famous. But when he thought of leaving, he imagined Smoke, alone again, misunderstood. He took a deep breath. "I'll stay." The Baroness smiled. "Truly this time. You chose well." She lifted her hand, and a small device hovered toward him. It glowed softly and attached itself to his chest like a badge. "With this, you carry my seal. Any who harm you will answer to me." Jaren blinked. "That's kind of a big deal, isn't it?" She nodded. "It is. And now we prepare. There are other nobles who want the beast. They won't stop, especially now that you are part of it." That night, Jaren returned to the room where Smoke rested. He knelt beside the beast. "We're not going back to the forest, are we?" Smoke opened one eye and gave a soft growl, like a tired but loyal answer. Jaren smiled. "Then we fight together." But far in the darkness of the galaxy, someone else was watching. A noble from another house. He had seen the broadcast. He had seen the bond, and he was not pleased. He turned to his advisor and hissed, "That human has stolen what should be mine. Prepare the assassins, and send the Whisper Beast." Jaren stood on the observation deck of the Baroness's sky palace, staring at the stars beyond the glass wall. He didn't feel like a hero. He was still wearing the same boots from the forest. Still, just a mechanic who once fixed broken engines, not guarded royal beasts, and yet, here he was. Behind him, Smoke lay resting under soft blue light. The beast was healing faster now. Its fur shimmered again with strength. The strange glow in its chest pulsed calmly, almost like a heartbeat. Jaren turned as the door hissed open. It wasn't the Baroness. It was a girl no older than 14. Her hair floated as if underwater. Her eyes glowed violet. She bowed. "I bring a message. From the High House of Farallon." Jaren frowned. "Never heard of them." She held out a crystal cube. "They invite you to speak." In the Council of Stars. He blinked. Me? Why? She looked at Smoke. Because they believe you stole what was meant for them. The Baroness arrived minutes later wearing a sharp black cloak. Her voice was calm but cold. They want to challenge your bond, claim it was a mistake, that the guardian beast must be taken and rebonded. Jaren shook his head. Smoke chose me. She nodded. They do not care. They care only about power. He looked at her. Then why invite me? Because it is the old way, she said. If they can humiliate you in front of the council, they win without war. Jaren sighed. So? I have to go stand in a room full of angry alien nobles who think I'm not good enough? She smiled slightly. Yes. The next day, a grand ship took Jaren, Smoke, and the Baroness to the council planet. It was enormous. An entire world turned into one great hall. Inside, nobles of every kind sat in floating chairs. Tall aliens with skin like mirrors. Short ones, with 6 arms. Others who shimmered like fire. All of them turned to look at Jaren when he entered with Smoke by his side. The Baroness stood beside him. Don't speak unless asked, and if they challenge you, stand firm. A loud voice rang through the hall. Let the trial of the bond begin. The leader of the Farallon house rose from his seat. His armor was made of moving bone and smoke. He pointed at Jaren. This human is a mistake. The beast belonged to our ancestors. We have trained for generations. And yet it chose him? Jaren stepped forward. I didn't force it. I helped it, the Farallon leader scoffed. That makes you weak. Compassion is not power. Jaren looked at the council. Maybe not, but it's the reason the beast is alive. The hall murmured. The Farallon leader hissed, then prove the bond is real. Let the beast choose. Jaren's heart pounded. Smoke was brought to the center of the chamber. The Farallon nobles stood on one side. They whispered strange commands in an old tongue. They held meat, crystals, even weapons. Jaren stood alone on the other side. He had nothing to offer. Smoke looked between them all. The room went quiet, and then Smoke walked toward Jaren. Slowly, calmly, then placed its massive head in Jaren's hands. The entire council gasped. The Farallon leader shouted, No! That creature is confused. Smoke growled. A deep, terrifying sound. The Baroness stepped forward. It has spoken. Later, Jaren stood outside the chamber, still shaking. Smoke was beside him, tail swaying. The Baroness approached. You didn't win just respect today, she said. You made history. Jaren laughed quietly. I'm still just a mechanic. She shook her head. No, you're more. She looked at the stars. You've been invited to every royal planet now. The nobles want to see the human who earned the bond of the guardian beast. You are no longer just welcome in the stars, Jaren. She turned to him fully. You belong to them. That night, as the ship rose toward the sky once more, Jaren looked out the window. Smoke rested at his side. Strong, loyal, and no longer alone. Jaren whispered, We really did it, didn't we? The beast rumbled softly, and in the stars ahead, new doors waited to open.